Hello and welcome to the Ridiculously Good VA Show with Tracy Daviero. If you are a virtual assistant or want to be one, this is the place to learn the tips and tricks you need to become a ridiculously good VA. I've been a part of the VA industry since 1998, and I'm excited to get to know you and help you build an amazing business. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast that teaches you how to be a ridiculously good virtual assistant. Today we're going to talk about communicating well so that you can stand out from the crowd. Today's quote is from Robin Crow, and the quote is, "It's simple. Go the extra mile and you will stand out from the crowd." It's a very simple quote, as a matter of fact. But I love it because to be a ridiculously good VA, you do have to go the extra mile in everything you do. Standing out from the rest of the sea of VAs is actually pretty easy, just when you tweak a few things, and communication is one of those really important pieces. A lot of people don't understand the importance of good communication, especially in the virtual assistant industry. It's very, very important. With most of our clients, we work virtually. We don't actually see them face to face on a daily basis. So written communication is something that has to be exceptional. And in order to be efficient, but also to save back and forth time, misunderstandings, and absolutely everything else in between that comes with bad communication or just average communication, right? Articulating what you need well and helping your clients to do the same is what makes for good communication. Excellent communicators easily boost their own reputation and success, and it sort of trickles down to the clients as well. You also need to be aware that communication is two-way. We know it is, but sometimes we don't treat it as such. You don't just have to make sure you're saying things in the right way. You also need to be a great listener as well. Listening to understand what the other person is saying is so important. You're not going to listen to respond. I know that I got called out on this once by an HR director. And she told me when she listened to me having conversations with other people that she could tell that I was formulating my response in my head as they were talking, and I wasn't really paying attention to what they were saying. And she told me that was rude. I was quite surprised by it, but it was a behavior that I grew to understand that I did actually. That's exactly what I was doing. But I didn't really understand until somebody pointed it out. And I didn't like being called rude, that's for sure. But it actually was how I was treating the conversation, right? Even if I knew how I was going to reply, she suggested that I should take a beat after they finish their thought and then speak. And she said to me, you're obviously very intelligent and you know what you're talking about, but don't make anybody else feel less than. I actually thought she was crazy at the time, even though what she was saying made perfect sense to me. But I'll tell you, when I started doing what she said, I really did notice a huge improvement in a lot of different things, in my level of understanding what the other person was actually saying, because she was correct. I wasn't probably listening completely to what they were saying before. My comprehension of the conversation, certainly, whenever you allow someone else to use the other side of the conversation, sometimes you get a little bit more information, right? So it's called active listening. And active listening is it's a courtesy, but at the same time, it helps you process everything better. It helps you be a better communicator. And for me, everything just started to make more sense. I still pay very close attention to my speed and my listening abilities. And obviously, that's something that's become a very big part of my conversations as a coach. Pay attention to the other person. You want to be respectful and honor their opinion too. So often we can judge somebody else before they even speak. And you want to think about, an example is to think about the people, whether they're clients or not, whose emails you dread seeing in your inbox, and the attitude you bring to those emails as a result, right? If you initially see their name and you think, ugh, I really don't want to talk to that, and oh my gosh, another email or a phone call or whatever, know that you're probably bringing some of that attitude into the response of the communication. And, I talk all the time about things being business and not personal, but our attitude about the way that we communicate and the attitude about the other person or the topic or whatever it is can still be the same type of thing. You still want to be professional, and you want to make sure that you are communicating in a way that is businesslike all the time. Always remember that listening is half of communicating. And if you can just take one tip from today's episode, I would bet it's going to be the listening tip, because I know how drastically it changed my communication style. And it wasn't something that I even knew I was doing until somebody else pointed it out. So check yourself and see, when you are having a physical conversation, like a face-to-face conversation or a verbal conversation, I guess, with somebody else, listen, watch yourself and see how you are acting and reacting, and see if you can notch up the way that you are reacting, the way that you're responding, and the way that you're paying attention and listening. Those are really, really simple things to fix, and you'll most definitely up-level your communication by doing better in that place. In terms of communicating well yourself, I'll always give you the same advice. Keep it brief. Humans can only digest so much. When we see anything that is long, it stresses us out, because everybody is busy and everybody has things to do, right? So I suggest all the time one subject per email with an appropriate subject line. Short sentences, factual content. Don't be an explainer or a justifier. When we do this in a conversation, it's a little bit more obvious that we're doing it. And in email, we can do the same thing, but we don't really realize it, especially if we are very fast at typing, which a lot of us are, right? So don't get lost in an email by droning on about anything. You want to get your message across, make your point clearly, and move on. And it's not to be robotic or anything like that. It's just to be clear and to respect the other person's time. But also, we don't need as many words as we use, right? If you need to explain something, if it's going to take a big explanation, perhaps just a phone call with the client to clarify what the problem is, or the issue, or the solution, or whatever it is. That is the way that you're standing out, showing the client that you can differentiate between when it's necessary to jump on the phone and when it's when we can just handle things very easily and quickly and simply and efficiently, via email or through the project management system. Also, be confident. If you don't believe what you're saying, nobody else is going to believe you either. And sometimes when we ramble on about something, we're trying to convince somebody of something, and it seems like maybe we don't believe it ourselves. Like a conversation about rates with a client, for instance. That's a really common one. That can sometimes feel difficult. But whatever you're communicating, you want to make sure that you can back it up and that you are confident that you're conveying the information properly. It's why I tell you to do the math whenever you're calculating your rates, because then you've seen the actual math, you've written it down, you've actually looked and seen why you charge the rates that you charge, and it's much easier to stand behind them instead of just having chosen a number out of thin air, right? If you are kind of going with the flow and saying, well, all VAs charge this, or this is what I should charge because someone in a VA group told you to do that, or told you that was a good rate, then you're not really always confident about it. So it is really important to be able to talk money with clients. And when you're doing that, you want to use the word budget. Ask them what theirs is. Tell them what you can do within it. You're not trying to convince people of anything. It really just never works, right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to provide support for people for something that they need support with. We're not trying to sell them something that they don't need. It never works that way. And confidence comes through whenever you understand the value of the services you're bringing, and whenever you are confident that the rates that you're charging, or that you are commanding, I guess, are accurate, because you know they are. And the difference really does come through whenever I'm talking to VAs who know their worth and know their value and know what they need to earn in their business and know that they're comfortable with their rates. It comes through a lot differently with the ones who really aren't sure, because either somebody hasn't paid them that amount of money yet, or they really just haven't taken the time to do the physical math. So smile. Always approach conversations in a positive way. If you come across any kind of conflict, always try to look for the positive spin. Now, that's not to, make light of anything that is going wrong, but if somebody made a mistake on something, whether it was you or somebody else, all you want to do is focus on the immediate fix and the future fix to ensure that it doesn't happen again. Now, maybe that's not about smiling, but it is positive. You're not focusing on, what went wrong and whose fault it was and what the drama, all the drama around it. You do want to just look after it. The future fix is that piece that says, okay, how can we, what then, what actually did happen, how did it happen, and how can we ensure that it's not going to happen again. It's not really about blame. It's about trying to approach every conversation in a positive way and move forward. Oftentimes mistakes can't be changed, but they can be fixed, right? And that's what we want to look at. Practice your conversations and edit your writing. Give everything a second look. When you write anything, even if it's just a simple response, read it over and edit. The edit buttons, whatever you use, the backspace, the delete key, whatever it is, they are there for a reason. And often when we read something through, we take a beat and we make sure that we're not putting in too much emotion, or we're not putting in, we're putting in enough emotion, but not too much. And getting that balance right. We just want to make sure that things are concise, right? And when you are building this habit, it's very good to look over everything and with the same eye. So you're always going to be looking at whether it's a 3-paragraph email or a 1-line email. Just read it over again before you push send, right? And when you're speaking, you want to think about what you're saying first and then speak, obviously, when the other person has finished. But that little bit of editing or self-editing or pause and practice, that is what's going to make you better at this particular skill every single day. Now, of course, there are times that you're going to have to change a subject or cut somebody short. It happens to me on discovery calls sometimes. The person on the other end is somehow busy explaining and justifying something, like why they don't have any clients, but why their tactics are still things they're going to stick with because they think they're going to work for them. And I will have to stop them. I wait, I'm respectful to a point, I listen, but then when they go off on a tangent and they don't look like they're coming back, I do stop them. But I use the same words all the time. It doesn't matter what the issue is. When they sort of get off on, a little discussion of their own, I always say, so how can I help you today? And that centers the conversation back again to what we're actually on the phone for. So you might say, well, Tracy, cutting people off is not communicating well. Of course, it doesn't sound like it is, but in this case, it is because it's necessary. We don't want somebody explaining and justifying and doing all that. Doesn't get us to the point of what we're trying to do. So we need to bring that other person back into that conversation. A conversation is two-way. Remember that, right? And if somebody is controlling the dialogue themselves, it's no longer a conversation, it's a speech. And communicating well means preserving that. And it means preserving it for yourself and sometimes preserving it for the other person as well. When I say, so how can I help you today? Or how can I help you today? When I stop somebody from their rant or their, tangent that they are off on, it recenters everybody and they say, oh, this is what I need. And sometimes you can get really, really clear just by, recentering the conversation that way. And you may sometimes have to come across that as well. You do also want to be authentic in your communication. I know I say be professional, but you also want to be you. And so written or verbal is all the same. Don't try to use big words. You just have to be you, right? If you like using big words and you use them in your everyday conversation, then that's fine. But don't try to use, words that are not it's not word of the day toilet paper, right? You don't need to be putting things in to sound professional. Just by the fact that you are being yourself and you're being a business person, you're having a business conversation, that is professional. But language matters, and so it is really important to choose your words effectively and just, get better at it. Use the right words and make yourself sort of strive to be better at that kind of thing. You also want to read every day. I am absolutely a voracious reader. I don't read lots and lots of books, although I do read some, but articles, news, post comments, everything I can get my hands on, all that short stuff, I got all the time in the world for that. Read the news and stay up on trends in your client industry and in the VA industry. Watch the weather in your client's neck of the woods. These are everyday things that bring an interesting perspective to everything you do. You're going to develop a better command over language when you are constantly reading and helping that out. I read out loud a lot too, and I listen to a lot of stuff. Podcasts obviously are very popular. And when we are filling our brain with that kind of thing, and we're looking for those opportunities to use the information that we're intaking in our dialogues, then it really up levels everything that we do. And you're going to develop a better command over language as well. Ask questions. Questions are always great to help you gain clarity, but they're also good for information seeking, right? To get information from people and to share the burden of the conversation. Everybody loves to talk about themselves and their business. And so when we are having a conversation and we want to get information from our client or our potential client, then asking a question, a very pointed question, is a really good way to do that. They will start to tell you all kinds of stuff, and you can take that information and generate more conversation from it. It's actually a really, really good tactic in networking. And then choose your timing well. There's often a good time for conversations, especially the hard ones. Timing is always very important. For instance, if you're talking about raising your rates with clients, there's a good time to do this, and there are many bad times to do it. And you want to be able to check in on those and make sure that you are doing things, the proper way, obviously, the good way. And other times that you need to choose your timing well are maybe during super busy time of work. If you make a mistake on something, you obviously want to do that fairly quickly. If you have a celebration, you want to celebrate that when someone else is struggling. The timing is everything, right? You want to really look at the other person, the other people. When a client is away, is that a time to reach out to them about something that's going wrong or something that's going right? There are lots of different conversations that we have, and there's lots of different information that we pass between people. And we just want to make sure that we're considering the timing of everything. Some things you can tell someone anytime, and that's okay. But we want to be really clear on, I remember I used to have a client when we were in the middle of a big launch, like when we had a really busy time. All of the little details didn't matter. And me communicating them to her because I wanted to, sort of say, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, it stressed her out. So it's not a good time to communicate those things. But what did she want to know during a big launch was if there were any errors or if there was anything that was slowing down, something like that. Those are the types of things. So you can even communicate with your clients about what it is that they want to know from time to time whenever you are giving them updates. That's another thing too. All different scenarios all require different timings. And just because something is on your mind now doesn't mean it's the best time to address it. There was a conversation in one of the VA groups not too long ago, and I was watching it, and it was about a VA who was raising rates, as a matter of fact, and how she decided, before a period of 1 year with her clients, to just send them an email and let them know what the new rate was going to be, which is often the advice that we give people. But she really didn't lead it up to anything. And there were some clients that she had only worked with, I think, for about 6 months. And so that's not a really good way to approach that conversation. It doesn't mean that she can't raise the rate, but sending a blank email and saying, or, just a standard email and saying, this is going to be the new rate as of 30 days from now, that freaked out some of her clients and they started to bail on her. And so it doesn't mean that you don't raise your rates. It means that you time the conversation better, right? It's a two-way conversation. And even though the decision to raise the rates is yours and yours alone, and we always say that if you're going to raise your rates, you may lose clients. It's fine. But there are good ways to do things. And so that's kind of what I'm getting at with that. Choose your timing well. And finally, responding is as important as initiating conversation. How do you respond to people can also make you stand out from the crowd. I'll give you a couple of examples from recent conversations I've had. I asked 2 people to DM me about setting up a private call recently. One of them messaged me and says, "Hey Tracy," and that's all, nothing else. That's what I got in my DM. And the other one messaged me and says, "Thanks for getting in touch with me in X group. I'd love to tell you more about XYZ. Here's my calendar link to book a call at your convenience. I look forward to speaking with you." Which one of these 2 is the better communicator? Obviously, the second one, at least to me, obviously the second one. It isn't all that obvious, but when you do recognize the difference between the 2, you're going to understand what I mean. The first one makes me work harder to help them. They talk about the issues they were having. I had told her she could PM me to discuss solutions. So the better response, in my opinion, would have been, "Hey Tracy, thanks so much for connecting with me about X. I am interested in discussing this further. Let me know next steps," or something like that. That would let me know that she's excited to talk to me and that she appreciates, obviously, she jumped into the DMs right away, and that she was really putting forth the effort to learn what it was that she didn't know that I could help her with. And that doesn't mean that I'm, smarter than anybody or better than anybody, but that was the purpose of me inviting her to my DMs. Now, I thought we were both very clear on that. I thought we both knew what we were jumping over to discuss. But so maybe in her thought, that was just initiating the conversation, hello, and then I was going to take it from there. But when you are asking someone for help and when you're acknowledging that they are offering you help, sometimes there's a better way to respond, right? And responding is really important. It's like the people that connect with you on LinkedIn and then immediately send you this very lengthy message with all of their links, expecting you to go and do the work to learn about whether you can use their services. Just don't do that. I mean, I tell people when we're talking about LinkedIn all the time, use it as you would have a conversation with somebody. You're not going to walk up to somebody face to face and start giving them all of your URLs and talk, and obviously a cut and paste message, right? You don't want to do that. You wouldn't do that in a regular conversation. So don't do it when you are connecting with people either. And DMs is, there's a lot of people who use them a lot different ways, but I think it's important to consider the people who are on the other side of the conversation. And so I am considering this woman who was obviously having trouble articulating what it was she needed. But at the same time, I expect her to be able to consider me on the other side of the conversation and value my time as somebody who's offering her some help for free. And sometimes that doesn't make it across, and that's totally okay. But then that's not a good use of my time having a conversation with somebody, right? Does that make sense? I'm just saying responses are really, really important. Yeah, you just want to create a relationship with every connection that you make. You want to nurture it and you want to communicate well, because the better you do it, the better you get at it, but also you get so much more out of every single conversation that you have. Whether we're looking to make better connections, build relationships with potential clients, or even get a client to take a sales conversation, or ask someone for help with something, your communication really is everything, especially in the VA industry. It makes a first impression that lasts, and good habits every day can help you stand out for sure. Communicating well is a skill that really must be learned and practiced all the time, but everybody can learn to do it just a little bit better. Take the time to identify how you can improve your communication skills, and you will stand out from the VA crowd. If you need some help perfecting your communication skills, reach out to me at tracy@yourvamentor.com. I've helped hundreds of VAs through their challenges and got them on their way to the next thing. I would love to do the same thing for you. I do private coaching, and my new mastermind, the Virtual Circle, registration is open now. Maybe one of those options is right for you. That's all I've got for you this week. Thanks for tuning in to learn how to become a ridiculously good virtual assistant. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Ridiculously Good VA Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more great resources for your VA business, visit my website at yourvamentor.com. I'll see you back here next time.